All right, guys, and welcome to Lead Better. This is our free monthly event where we aim to partner with various people in the industry to bring content to you guys that will help you pivot into your next. My name is Alex Seal, and I am joined by Neff. We represent half of our team here at TPE. It's myself. I've been with Chick-fil-A over 20 years now. Again, as I said earlier, Linda, I have the opportunity to work for one of the greatest operators in the company. That's my opinion. No offense to you, Brad. But also, I have with me Neff. He is our bilingual coach, and so he works with a lot of Spanish-speaking individuals, leaders across the state to try to help them get better. Who isn't here is Giovanna Roach. She also has 20 years of experience. She is a strong force in our business. She has a lot of Chick-fil-A knowledge. Just so happens she works for Brad's brother. And so it's a bit of a family thing here. Neff also works for Brad's brother in Baytown. And there's another person on our team by the name of Ashley. We work together in the same restaurant system. And we're just happy to be able to bring our collective experiences all together to help leaders like yourself that are on the outside of Chick-fil-A and also help leaders that work within Chick-fil-A to just get better. One of the things that really pushes us to be as good as we are is to know that there are people out there who just need that extra push, and that's why we've put this whole thing together to try to help people do that. And you're joining us today for a special Lead Better. Every other month, we're trying to bring in operators to speak into their experience as to why they wanted to be a part of Chick-fil-A, what their journey was about, and then if they've gotten their store already and had some experience, speaking to that a little bit. Now, I've had the opportunity to know this young man's story in some detail, and I'm going to try to do my best not to speak from that standpoint. But we have Brad Henckel here. He is the owner operator now of his second assignment. I don't want to call it assignment, his second store rather in Lufkin. He started here in Beaumont with us in the mall, and then he moved on from the mall unit to the freestanding unit. So I really believe he has a very unique lens on what it means to be an operator. You're not going to run into too many operators who had the opportunity to operate a mall because they're phasing those out one by one. And so his experience at the ground level in the mall, I think, is very valuable to us today. So, Brad, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm doing great. How's everybody out there?
We're doing well, man. And just I want to tell you again, thank you for taking time out on a Sunday. This is supposed to be the rest day for us all, and you're taking some time out to spend with us. It's greatly appreciated. And do you want to kind of introduce yourself a little bit of background on you and who you are and what you represent?
Sure. It'll highlight. It's a lot of my story, but that's fine. So, yeah, I grew up with Chick-fil-A my entire life. My dad's been an operator since 1980. So grew up with it, and of course, just as a preface, my brother's an operator too in Baytown, Texas. More of my family stuff. I met my wife in 2009. We got married in 2012. So we've been married. It'll be 12 years this year. I've got a son. He is 8 years old. So he is, and I guess technically, he is as old as my Chick-fil-A operator journey is. So he was born the same year I got, or shortly before I got my first store. So he's been there for that whole thing too. So he's a Chick-fil-A baby as well. So kind of grew up in the back of the store. Actually, in the store we're going to talk about here in a little while. Grew up in the back of that store, here in the ice machine plink, and being in a little playpen in the back as my dad and my mom worked it. The only employees in the store were my dad and my mom in the early days. And so that's just one of those things that where Chick-fil-A was to where it is now is just amazing. So
Thank you so much for that, Brad. So you mentioned growing up just like in the thick of the Chick-fil-A world, right? Your mom and dad were there since the beginning. So what made you want to pursue a career in mechanical engineering, and then what forced you to say, hey, this is not for me anymore?
Yeah, so you got to realize where Chick-fil-A was, or where I perceived it at the time when I graduated high school. I graduated in 2000, and at that time my dad was still in the mall. He'd been there for 20 years, and he was unloading the truck every Saturday. We got weekly deliveries. That was what he did. And it was tough. He's one of the operators that earned it for the rest of us. Truly, truly, right? He is one of the operators that this company is built on. And so, you want to do, as you're looking at that as a kid, you want to say, oh, he's doing this so I can do better, right? And in my head at that time, it's like, what's better? I'm gonna go to college, I'm gonna get a degree, I'm gonna get a job where I don't have to work on Saturdays. That was my thought process graduating college. And I mean, did that. I graduated with a mechanical engineering degree, which I'm very happy about at this point. I had it and I went into industry and I worked in industry for almost 10 years. And got to a point where I was an engineering manager or something or other. I don't really got it. With I think 45 direct reports in my department. And and then I started working turnarounds in the plant in the chemical industry, and I was working every Saturday and gonna say what happened. This all went wrong. But it's okay, it wasn't every Saturday. But I guess it got to a point, so that's what made me go to engineering is like I know I can. Or it wasn't I knew I can, it was just I want to try. I should do this. And it was a good career path for me. But then as I got into an engineering manager position, my wonderful plant manager at the time had a much bigger vision for me. And none of this, I don't think any of this would have happened without him either. He sent me to a leadership school of all things at LSU in Baton Rouge. And, sent me over there for the week, had me learn, had me go through just leadership courses. And it just, that fire started then. It's like, oh, leadership, that's cool. That like actual leadership. So you come back with that, maybe a few weeks later, whatever. I'm going to play golf with my dad and my brother. Don't play golf anymore. Don't even like playing golf, but played golf that day. And so we're playing golf, and I'm talking to him about, hey, this leadership stuff. Oh, this is what we're doing. This is what we got. This is how we see it. And my dad and my brother are going, yeah, we saw that a year ago. Yeah, we saw that a couple of years ago. Yeah, we're doing that in our stores. Here's how we're doing it. And I'm making these connections in my head going, hey, we're doing the same things. Like leadership translates. That's why I love it. That's why I love it so much at this point in my career, because I can teach that now. And so it kind of caught in my head. It's like, why am I not owning my own business? Obviously I grew up with Chick-fil-A. I knew the opportunity. Even growing up, I assumed my dad was an anomaly. Getting the freestander in Beaumont and everything that he saw, I thought he was an anomaly. We started looking at it. No, this is a growing company. This is a thing that's happening. It's like, okay, is it too late for me to contribute to that? Was my question. It's like, no, if you want to do it, let's go. Okay. So I applied. Just realizing I can go from working for somebody to working for myself. And that was the biggest draw for me. Obviously I knew the advantages of being able to be there for my son, being able to be there for my wife, my family, all those things. But it was just about, owning my own journey and owning my own leadership journey, even at that. So after developing that passion.
No, that's cool. I guess I'm learning something today too, because I didn't realize that facet of it, of y'all going to play golf. It was kind of the catalyst of that journey for you. The way it was told to me, it was you called one day and it was like, hey, we're learning how to make cookies, and it was like, hey, that sounds fun. Let me go. Let me go figure that out.
What I say may or not be true, but that's what it's in my head. So I mean, that's how I remember it happening. So
for sure. So you did mention that you applied. Now now remind me, that initial application, did you do that outright before you start working inside the restaurant, or?
Yes. So that first application process was before I started with Chick-fil-A. And if I look back at it now, I didn't know anything. Nothing. It was just like the tip of the iceberg. Leadership. Oh, that's pretty cool. I could do that. May or may not have been right about that. But so I just put in the application.
All right. If I'm assuming that initial application is not you didn't make it through on that first go round.
Certainly not. Certainly not. I made it to whatever. I don't even know what the levels are anymore. But I flew to California and I had an in-person interview. They said, "Thank you, no, thank you. Have a good one."
And so, what was your temperament after that? So you got that first rejection. How did you
Mhm.
stay motivated to keep applying?
For me, at that point, mostly arrogance and stubbornness. If
Okay.
I'm honest, I didn't know why I was doing it. I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew I could, and I was stubborn enough too, so I did. I mean, and there wasn't, and honestly, I can't say there's much more motivation than that at that time. So, I mean, that was it for me. So,
Gotcha.
and there's a little bit of that necessary. So,
For sure. And I just want to pause here. We've had some people join in. Hey, if you don't mind, I know we're full swing in the conversation. Drop in the comments where you guys are watching from, where you guys are tuning in from. And I want to also just make sure you guys know that this is being recorded. So toward the end of this, we'll have an opportunity to be able to field questions. And Brad will be, as you guys can tell, very honest about his thought process on your questions. So just wanted to throw that out there to you guys before we kept going. So I'm assuming after you got that first denial, that's when you made the decision to go work in a restaurant.
correct. Yeah, that was the thing. It's like, okay, how am I going to get closer to this? How am I really going to learn this thing? And I was like, let's just go do that. I mean, that's the way to do it, is to go do it. So yeah, talk to my wife. And so let me throw in right here. There's another element of this, and that was my relationship to God, which started developing at about this same time. Okay, so previous to this, my relationship was hit and miss, and it was, I was okay. But again, I had that arrogant thing, I had that pride thing with me, and it traveled with me throughout this process. And so right about this time, that relationship started to strengthen. I started to lean on it. And so that will pop up throughout this conversation. So my wife and I talked to her about it. We had just gotten married, by the way. And I said, hey, she married an engineer. And I said, hey, yeah, I'm gonna not do that. I'm gonna go sell chicken. So that was the conversation shortly after we got married. I was like, okay. And she didn't know anything about it at the time. And she obviously knew my family was in it, but she didn't know anything about it. So it was kind of like, okay, if you think so, okay, let's do that. So we prayed about it. And like, if you think that's the right thing, let's do that. And so made that decision in 2000. I think it was March 2013, around about there. And I got married in November of 2012. So
Right. Yeah.
just a
No.
few months later.
Yeah. There was a huge life event that happened around the
Mhm.
same time that you got married. So I remember that happening. You kind of coming to the restaurant for a specific thing
Mhm.
that happened, and so yeah. No. And so, how was transitioning into the restaurant for you?
Um, I would say it was fine for me, from my perspective. It's fine. Just here to do a thing and go on, right? That was in my head. It wasn't supposed to change me. I was already good enough. I just need to learn some things, was my perspective. I don't think it was like that for everyone around me. And so we can chuckle about this now because Alex was there. But I wasn't there. I didn't understand the impact I needed to look for. I didn't understand yet the just the what the purpose of it was. And so I went into it just thinking, okay, I just got to learn some things and I'll be all right. I mean, get back in the restaurant and do what I did as an engineer, and I'll be fine. And that was not it. I'll tell you that. Very
Well,
much not it.
well, would you care to elaborate on that? And you can do it as candidly as you
Yeah,
so please.
yeah. I'm trying to. Um, I don't know. It was so I came into the restaurant with a couple of identities. I was an engineer. I was an Aggie graduate. I was a college graduate. I was I was Robert's son, but I didn't use that one a lot. Like that wasn't a part of me at this point. In my journey before this, I had become me, which what my identity was an engineer and an Aggie. So that's who I was. And so that kind of flavored every relationship that I had. Was like, let me tell you about who I am, which did not serve me well at all, at all. And so I can say, through the rest of my journey, it was a process of undoing who I thought I was and who I identified as in that shell that I had around me to protect the vulnerability of myself, not realizing that the vulnerability is the exact thing you need to be the leader that you need to be. And so it was a difficult process transition. Once I don't know, Alex, honestly, I don't know if I got to the vulnerability piece before I got selected as an operator, or if my true humbling was becoming an operator and then the imposter syndrome hitting and then realizing that I had to get rid of these things, these parts of me. I don't know where that came. I think it was probably after I was already an operator where I had to let those things go and had to say, okay, you're not good at this. It's time to figure out why and start that rebuild process of exactly how I wanted to lead people. So, mhm.
Well, I guess I would ask from that, during your time in the restaurant, what do you feel like you gained the most? I think, did you feel like you were able to start focusing on your why as a leader, even though you may felt like you didn't
Yeah,
fully transition into who you are now until you got selected?
yeah,
But
yeah,
what are some things, and I guess for some people, and I know we have a manager at a plant on right now. One of my good friends is on. He works at Motiva. For those of you guys might not know what Motiva is, but he's on. And I know some other people on here that have careers, and the shock of leaving that career to go work in a restaurant, take that lower, I guess I don't want to call it lower position, but a different position than what you went to school for, that you
yeah.
worked for. What were some of those things that you walked away from during the time that you spent in the restaurant?
Great question. I did develop my why during that point in time. And that one hit me like a ton of bricks. And that's the funny story I get to tell. My wife, uh, she helped me with this unintentionally. So I'd gotten home from work. She worked till 7 o'clock at night. She's a nurse, and she worked till 7. I'd gotten off at 5, 6, whatever it was. Gotten home, showered. I was sitting there. I don't even know if I'm a good husband. I probably had dinner ready. It's not true. Um, but I was sitting there watching TV, and she comes in and she plops in her chair right next to me. And being the very ever observant husband, I say, "Hey, oh, what's wrong? You okay?" And she says, "Oh, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of this." It's like, oh, key for me. Sick of what? Tell me about it. Right? Good job. Um, what are you sick of? What's going on? So, well, we get in there and we all get our assignments and we all go out and go to do them, and then not 10 minutes later, the person in charge will come in and start plucking us out of rooms, moving us around. And it's like there's no organization. There's just nothing goes to plan ever. It's constant chaos. And I'm sitting here listening to her, mostly just to respond. And I say, man, do you know how different it would be in your workplace if you had that level 5 great leader who had a vision, who communicated, who would talk to you about, hey, here's how it's going to go. Here's where I'm going to need some help. I'm not sure about this. I'm going to need help over here. Who you guys think would be the best to help with that? This, that, and the other. And I'm telling her this, and she's looking at me like I'm a crazy person. And she says, that all sounds well and good, but who's doing that? Who's training people to be like that? And this is where my why just popped. It was like I was frustrated. I was like, I am. This is what I do every day. This is why I do it. Like yeah, sure, we sell chicken, but we're training leaders to change the environments everywhere else. And that's the thing that has developed for me from that moment up until today, that I still start with my team on. I'm blessed with a great team right now, but I tell them all the time, it's like, your end time is not here. You're going to be with me a little while. And I hope I get to teach you something in that amount of time. But I'm the only person who's going to work here the rest of my life. I'm the only one. So your job is to get here, learn, and then go somewhere else and make a difference. That's your job, and that's my joy. Like, whatever happens here in your career is fine. But my joy comes from your success later. And that is what drives me to do the things the way I do.
Awesome. So talk to me about how that passion translated into your first restaurant at the mall. Now, this had to be a homecoming moment for you. You said at the beginning you were
Mm-hmm.
raised in the back of that mall with you and your
Yep.
mom and dad. Now, I guess the irony is your dad opened it, you closed it. And
Mm-hmm.
so how did you take that why, or the beginning of that why, and how did you translate it into your leadership day one or year one at the mall?
So I took some of the resources that we used in dad stores, and I said, okay, which one was the game changer for me? Happens to be what John Maxwell's 15 laws. Okay. So I took that one and I started sitting down with, um, I don't know how many leaders actually. It was one leader at the time, and I sat down with her and we started going through John Maxwell's 15 laws. And the only reason I picked her, this was the only thing that stuck out about her. Everybody else is fine, but she had put on her application or something questionnaire where I had put out, hey, what are you looking to do? She said, I'm looking to grow. Hey, light bulbs everywhere. Okay. I said, oh, okay, let's try. Let's see what happens. So I'd sit down with her once a week in the restaurant and we'd go over a chapter, and 15 laws, 15 weeks. That's what we did. Um, and so it wasn't good enough, but it was a start. It was teaching me how to teach, and it was teaching me about the perception of me as a teacher. And so then I realized, and she did well with it. And so I was like, okay, that was good. How do I do this at scale? How do I start doing this more intentionally? How do I start doing this? And that's where my leadership development program kind of developed. Was, we identify high performers, and before they could move into leadership, they had to go through my 15-week class, leadership class. And at the beginning of it, we very explicitly tell them, hey, this is not a leadership class. There are no guarantees, but you are being judged in this classroom every single day. Your participation matters. If you'd like to be in leadership, you should learn this stuff, participate, and tell us how you learn from it. If that's not important to you, you can let us know. You can drop out of the class. It's not required. There's no, this doesn't affect you in any way. If you don't want to be here, you don't want to be here. It's a bad season. It's a bad season. No big deal. But this is a growth class. This is for you. This is, yes, at the end of this, you might be able to sell chicken a little bit better, but you're going to know how to grow yourself as a person more than anything after this class. And that has become the goal of our development program, is just how are we growing people?
And so how do you, okay, what are some of the successes that maybe jump off the page to you from implementing that system? I might know of the young lady that you're referencing that you started out with, but
Yeah.
like, how have you seen this translate into the lives of the other people that you've had working around you?
So I guess the measurable ones would be, there are people in the Beaumont community that went through my class that are there now, that are teachers, that are excelling, that I know learned something and took a lot from that class. Many of them are successful. Like I can still keep track of them. I can see their careers. They're doing very well. And that makes me really happy. Um, it gives me, it gives, so as a leader, it gives buy-in. It gives me an opportunity. So I do these classes a lot, even to this day, because it's so important to me. Um, so it gives who at that time are team members or high performing team members an opportunity to spend an hour with me once a week. And in that hour, those 15 hours of that class, I get to share a lot of the story that I'm sharing tonight with 7 to 8 team members every single week. It gives me an opportunity to be a person. It gives me an opportunity to be vulnerable and show my weaknesses and show that, hey, I'm here with y'all. So I get a lot of buy-in from that, from my team, just for spending that amount of time with them. They get to understand my heart. They get to understand my goals. They get to understand that, hey, the people making the decisions actually care about us. It's not just work harder. Like they get to do that. And then the ultimate, I guess, how do I know that's buy-in? I had, I think, 6 of my 19 team members from Beaumont move with me 2 hours away to my new location. So that was a huge pick up your life and move it moment for some of them. And some of them it's worked out long term, some it hasn't, but they wanted to and they did, and that was incredible. So more than I deserve, certainly.
No,
So
that's awesome. To be able to have that level to build that level of equity with somebody to say, "Hey, I grew up here in Beaumont all my life. I trust you enough as my boss or as my leader, better put, to move along with you." And I think this is a great segue into speaking about your transition from the mall to the freestander. And I guess for
yeah.
the people online, I guess maybe if you could, if you're comfortable talking about, I guess what were some of those key things that you felt like went into the success of you being able to be granted that opportunity. And before you answer that, I said a lot of people who are here who are aspiring to be operators, a lot of the time, um, Chick-fil-A may put you in a position to where you're not in the most highest of volume situations to kind of really show, do you have the capacity to do this? It's almost a biblical concept. Are you good over a little before you get a lot, right? And so
Right.
I think that your time at the mall was that stepping stone into this larger opportunity. But what were some of those things that you felt like you excelled at that got you to that point in which you were granted that opportunity?
I think so. My 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 journey to this location where I'm at now, um, I can tell my team in that process, I got 7 no's. I got told no, thank you 7 times. And typical to the Chick-fil-A process, you don't get a lot of feedback on these things. It is, hey, do better. I mean, you have to run a team, you have to run a business. Do that. And it's like, okay, how you do that though, as you make your mark and you become your own leader and you become comfortable with how you work, um, it is the challenge. And so let's see. No, I want to talk about this. Um, I told you already, I don't think I really got to the transparency vulnerability place until 2 years into my first opportunity at the mall. We ran a good up for the 2 years. We ran a good business. Sales were up every year. Uh, Everything's were improved. Things were improving. I had my team. I can say that every single time I got a visit, I had a better team the entire time, which was good. I was building equity in myself, but I wasn't really to the point where I was intentional about it. And that's what I really had to figure out was, okay, you're doing good, but if you're not as present, like going from a team of 19 to a team of 100 people, you're not as present with every person. So without being as present, how do you make sure that everybody gets it? How do you make sure that everybody knows your values, knows your mission, believes in what you're doing from open at 6 a.m. to close at 9 or 10 p.m.? How does everybody just get it? And that was the piece that I had to prove at the mall. It was like, how are you helping your team just to get it all day long? And so, that leadership class grew from one-on-ones to I'd have 4 to 6 people, 4 to 6 high-level team members around the table, talking to them every week, being transparent about the process. Hey, here's what's going on this week. Hey, here's where I'm struggling. Here's where I'm doing. Here's where this is happening. And really being real with them and getting that buy-in. And with that buy-in, I mean, a person with buy-in and energy can do anything. And so you just have to give them the guidelines. And guidelines in this context come out through, hey, what's our why? What's our mission? What's our values? What are we really after here? What is a win tonight? And I would even advise mall operators today that are in that position. Sales are awesome. Sales are great. Nobody's ever going to say sales are not great. That is a good thing. But if you're looking for that next opportunity, you need a culture of, I want to say sales building, or a culture of growth, a culture of growth-minded people. Like, it can't be, hey, my operator wanted sales, so we went and got sales. Yeah, it's all great. But hey, you the team saying we wanted more sales, so we told the operator this is what we're going to do. And that's that piece where they start to own their own journey. They start to own their own things that they know they can do or they want to do. And you just have, and hopefully it gets to the point where they're pushing your boundaries. And you're saying, I don't know if I'm really comfortable with that. And then they'll make the sales pitch, but we want to, and here's how we're going to succeed. Okay, let's see how it goes. And really getting to where after you've been selected as the operator, you think, oh man, I got selected as the Chick-fil-A operator. I'm the one making the decisions. That feels pretty good. And now your team's going to tell you, I want to do this. You have to kind of set aside this new ego that you've developed and say, okay, go for it. Sure. And in the back of your mind going, there's no way that's going to work. But okay, go ahead. Let's see what happens. Sure. Absolutely. Tell me your plan. I'll take a poor plan executed with violence every single day, as opposed to no plan executed sometime later. If you want to do it now, go for it. Let's see what happens. Learn a lesson. Like I said, I've got a short amount of time with these guys, so do it. Learn a lesson and tell me what you learned. Let's go after that.
Man, that's really good. A lot of things that we talk about here at TPE is, we focus on helping people lead themselves, lead others, and lead the restaurant. And I think a lot of people who are approaching to try to be a Chick-fil-A candidate, they're really good at the leading self part, right? They know how to generate results themselves. They have a track record of generating results themselves, but it's how well have you helped other people drive results? And I think that's kind of what you're speaking to, that difference maker between, yes,
yep,
we, everybody here, and all high level leaders, operators, yeah, you know how to do that, but do you have a record of helping other people do the same thing? And I think that's what the difference maker is, from someone going from great high performing team member to operator.
Yeah, and even to the point of you're systemizing yourself, and we talk about, and I'm sure you do too, it's clarity and trust are the two things that you can give your team, right? How clear are the values and the mission? Like, can your team actually make decisions based on the values that you've given them? Because you're trying to systemize yourself and your thought process so that somebody else. So I mentioned I do the team member meetings right now. I don't do all of them though. Somebody else teaches my heart now, which is weird. Okay. It's a difficult concept because I don't know if they actually get it. Even the longest term people with me, they can only do so much of what I can do, and so I have to also honestly realize my role in the things I have to do. I have to show my heart. I have got to show people what we actually care about in my actions. So, mhm.
Excellent, excellent. How much of your past career do you still exercise in your current posture now? Like your mechanical engineering background, you spent you're coming up on spending as much time as an operator as you did as an engineer. How much of
Yep.
that bleed over still happens from the engineering world to Chick-fil-A?
You know, a lot of spreadsheets. I can honestly say I have a bunch. I know you do too. So it's no. I got a partner in this room. But we do a lot of spreadsheets. We do a lot of analysis. But I do the best I can to get those done and go stand next to somebody else. And I think the reason I was successful as an engineer as opposed to my peers was because that's what I did there too. Yes, I can run the spreadsheets, but I need to go talk to the person who's actually doing this to understand why this is happening. And that's what I did. I spent more time in the field than any other engineer that was with me at that time. Very little time in my office. It bored me. So, and that's it didn't hurt that jump going from engineering to Chick-fil-A either. I was bored. But I, apart from the mindset, I prefer organization. I prefer more data. I'm always asking questions. Trying to figure out the answers, whatever those are, but and never finding them, but always trying to exercise people's brains to start thinking along the lines of what I'm thinking about. So, mhm.
No, I love that. And so I guess, we've got a few minutes left before we open the floor for questions. And you said something earlier that I want to kind of piggyback on. You said you got 7 no's.
Mhm.
Okay. And you have to have a high level of resilience to keep on doing that. One, where do you think that resilience came from? And two, how are you giving that same level of resilience to your team? How do you build that up in other leaders that you're working with currently?
We so there are two phases. I mentioned them. I've mentioned them both. I'll go over them again. Um, the first part was just arrogance and ignorance. I didn't know what I was getting into. It didn't matter. I was going to be successful. And so that was just keep going, just keep plugging away, keep going at it. No guarantees. That's not why I got a store anyway, because there's persistence. They wanted me to stop asking. So that no guarantees that wasn't the answer. But um, I will say after I lightning bolted my why, that solidified it for me. And as that has matured, it solidifies me more and more every single day. Um, my store's vision is um, one team orchestrating success. And I sit down with each leader, and and it's open ended for a reason because success for each of us is different. And it usually, if you can define your success well, it will lend some light to your why. And so that's really what I'm after for each of my leaders is I want to personalize their why. And we start with a why conversation at the beginning of the leadership class, the growth class. We start with a why. And the why theme comes up in every single class because it requires discipline. It requires discipline. And you won't have discipline unless you know why you need that discipline. Now, you might say, why do I need this? Because I want to be successful. Yeah, that's a start. But what's your why about you? Why you really want to be successful? What's the point? And you start to personalize that for each person and say, why do you really want to do this? Or why are you working for Brad? What's the point of working for me? I'll give you my vision for you, but if you don't agree with it, let's talk about yours. I want to know where you want to be because if you care about you, I know you do. and you want success for you, that's awesome. Tell me why. Tell me why it's important and help me help you get there. That's when you can tap into that and say, this Chick-fil-A journey will assist your success in life. There's where you want to be, I believe.
Love that. Love that. And so, final question. And I appreciate your time. Very insightful for me. I, on a personal level, really have enjoyed this conversation, just given our history, given the time that we've spent together.
Yep.
I really, really have just love watching what you're doing with your teams, watching what you're doing, all the way up there in Lufkin. And so, what advice would you give any aspiring Chick-fil-A operators out there? What would you tell them about the journey going forward?
Know your why, obviously. That's the biggest one. Know your why. Be able to speak on it compellingly, at length. Know it so well that it lives in your heart. Because I've seen, and you've seen, Alex, plenty of people mess up when they have too much freedom. It's nothing, nothing fails like current success, right? And so, you get to the point in your life where you have enough freedom to do whatever you want to do. What would you do? Well, my why tells me I have something to go do every single day. I have a purpose. I wake up with a reason and a purpose, and I know what I need to go do. It keeps me on track. It keeps me structured. It keeps me disciplined to this day. I've got to keep my disciplines in order to allow this success to happen around me. So the job doesn't end when you get there. It's like, okay, now you're there. What are you going to do with it? So.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Thank you so much, Brad. Neff, if you will, I think we got a couple of questions in the chat. Would you facilitate that portion of this session for us?
Absolutely. So we have Jay on here. He had a first question. Jay, thank you for joining in. But Brad, I know you mentioned about, the process doesn't typically provide a lot of feedback when you get rejected. And so his question is, why do you think you were told no the first time you applied to be an owner operator?
Many reasons. Ignorance, arrogance, lack of really understanding what I was getting into. I was a good engineer and got confidence because engineers are not very social, and I was social, and I would go ask questions and I would talk to people. I was a big fish in a small bowl in that sense. You get into this type of career where everybody's high level, everybody's fast moving, everybody is very capable. You have to start kind of exploring yourself and figuring out what it is you uniquely do, or that you have uniquely figured out. And for me, that's been my lean in on culture, my lean in on developing people, and just being able, finally, being able to talk about my why well.
Yeah. I think it's important to understand the unique factors that everybody as a leader brings. Because when we don't understand what makes you unique and what you can contribute to an organization, it's really hard to be able to drive culture if you don't even understand the uniqueness that you can bring to a team or to an organization.
Yeah.
So that was good. And then Linda, you were the first one to join in. Thank you for being here. So Brad, she said, any suggestions, advice that you would give somebody who also failed in the first attempt a 2 years ago and reapplied 2.5 years later as an external candidate? There could be some slimmer chances of getting in, as she mentioned, especially after being denied the first time. So do you have any suggestions or advice on that?
Yeah, from what I've seen, know know yourself, know yourself, know yourself, know your strengths, know your weaknesses, um, and be very honest about it because they're going to find them out. They're really, really good at this. On one side, the application process is absolutely brutal. I don't envy anybody who's going through it. It's hard. It's hard on you. It's hard on your family. On the other side, I'm thankful for it. It's what helps protect our brand. It makes you go through the process. In the process, you have to find rock bottom. You have to have that decision of, okay, am I going to do this again or am I not? You're not the only one to go through that decision. I went through it as well. Find your inspiration, find your reason, go back to your why, pray about it constantly, and don't be afraid to be vulnerable in the interview. Remember that every single person is going to go in there and tell Chick-fil-A how great they are. That's great, but what about the other side? If everybody hides that constantly, they're not going to know that. Don't just go, don't tell them how bad you are at everything. That's not what I'm saying. But be willing to be vulnerable about how you've gone through your journey and how you've sought growth.
No, and I'll just add to that. Sorry, Nev. I'll just add to that. I think you've done a really good job of that during this call, Brad. Honestly, I feel, I can really appreciate how transparent you were about your perceived shortcomings, just some of the challenges and the obstacles that you faced during this time. I definitely think that, you were really, 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 really transparent, just about some of the things that you've endured during this time, especially after, and I think this is worth noting, even after you crossed the finish line, right, you still said, man, I've got a lot to unpack and I've got a lot to learn, especially going from a team of 20 now managing a team of or operating a team of 100. I can definitely bet that you've even had more learnings during that time frame. So I guess just saying that to say, like, no one's going to step up to the plate when they're in the application and be everything that you need to be day one. I think Chick-fil-A is looking for we talked about this earlier. Chick-fil-A is looking for the right people that they can help mold into what they're looking for. So I love that. I love that. Do y'all have any other questions before we transition to the final part of this session? You don't have to type them up. I know, Matthew, you're joining us as well. I didn't know if you wanted to unmute and ask a question to Brad while we had him here. And if that's not the case, Brad, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Your time is very valuable. A lot of insights, not only for the people who registered for this, but also for me as a host here. I appreciate your transparency. I always love to sit in these type of situations and learn from other people. And you're somebody that I've definitely have had the pleasure of learning from over the years. And hopefully we can continue to impact each other beyond this call for sure. But thank you so much, Brad. We're going to have to do some closing things. So you're more than welcome to exit, be with your family. Me and you will have a lot of conversations after this call, I'm sure, about other things. But thank you so much, man.
My pleasure. Call me when you need me, and we'll talk.
All right. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Good luck.
All right. All right.
It's my love, mine.
All right. It's great to be sitting here with my boy Alex. We're talking all things hospitality, all things leadership. It's amazing to see what he's doing with the pivot experience and everything he's doing, the leadership boy. I'm Sean DeVries. So I'm from Australia. You'll see me from Melbourne, obviously, here with Principal of Hospitality and Open Pantry Consulting.